It.
The Dutchman's treasure!
Wow!
Hey y'all, it's Dia, and today we're gonna do a cloud tutorial, so let's get right into the video. What you're gonna need is, I am using this palette paper from Blick. You don't have to use this, it's just what I'm using. And then for paint, I'm using cobalt blue, titanium white, and possibly some purple and pink. And most of this will be used for the background, and then the white and blue will be used for the clouds. You don't have to use the exact brands I'm using. I'm just showing that you can use pretty much any brand for this tutorial. And then you're also going to need a dry brush, preferably a brush that you're not attached to, because if you could see this one, how the bristles are coming out, because I press really hard when I'm doing the clouds. But I use a brush like this, and then I use a smaller brush as a wet brush. But you're definitely gonna need both brushes for this tutorial. The brushes don't have to be this exact size, you just need 2 brushes for what we're gonna do. And then a cup of water it's mainly for your wet brush. You don't need it for your dry brush because you want to keep it dry. And then something to wipe off your dry brush so you don't have excess paint when you're trying to make your clouds. And then I will be using my vintage sketchbook for this tutorial. I just got this off of Amazon. I'll link it in the bio below. And then of course you don't have to use exactly what I'm using. I'm just utilizing this to make it a little bit easier. Start putting the paint on the palette paper, and you're gonna need some white paint. It doesn't really matter which brand it is, just utilizing this one. I'm using cobalt blue. And then some, I might put this on a little bit later onto this tutorial because this paint dries faster. Use this lilac color. I don't know if you guys can see it on the thing, but... And before we start making our clouds, I'm going to paint the background. And you can make the background color whatever color that you desire. I am probably just going to use I typically try to go for like an ombre effect, because I like how that type of sky looks. Ombre effect, it makes it a little bit easier to create more depth in your clouds. Right here, I'm just mixing the white and the cobalt blue to make a lighter blue. And since this is acrylic paint, I'm trying to work as fast as possible, just because acrylic paint does dry extremely fast, and I want it to be a nice blend. And it's okay to like overlap a little bit, because you don't want it to look like not two different colors, but like separated. So just keep in mind about trying to work fast so your colors can blend well. And you can overlap the lighter blue with the darker blue for a smoother transition, like how I'm doing here. I'm going back in, and then if it's too light, you can go back in with the blue and, you know, make it darker the way you want to make it. So I am just doing that, and I'm moving this around because I don't want to get the other pages blue. And like I said, I'm trying to work kind of fast because I don't want the paint to dry too fast. This is why you put tape down, so you don't get down the other page. It's fine. It is what it is. Now that we're getting closer to like the end, I'm gonna start adding in my purples. And if it bothers you that the purple is kind of like bluish, you can of course clean off your brush, but I'm not gonna do that. And right in the center, I do want to make it a little lighter than the rest. And this is kind of how I make my clouds have a little shine in them. Kind of like there's like a light source. So usually I make the light source kind of in the center, like the horizon. These paints, I get it from Walmart. This is paint that I got a long time ago, but I'm just utilizing it for this tutorial. But I forget, for this type of paint, usually you have to put like a little bit more layers on to make sure that it's extremely pigmented compared to some of the other brands that I'm using. It like a little goes a long way. But for this particular paint, I have to really saturate it. And I'm also going to mix this lavender and pink together for my little light source in the center. I hope I'm not going too fast for y'all. Well, if I'm going too fast, y'all can slow down this video. It's a little separated here, and we want a smoother blend. So I'm going to clean off my brush and go back in with the blue on the top. Like I said, I'm trying to make this as saturated as possible. And this paper is a little bit discolored because it's like 100% cotton, so we are working with this. And then I'm going to add some more of this lighter blue from earlier, go back in to make the blend smooth, and then I'm gonna add some water and move down so I can smooth this out. Keep in mind, if you guys are using a different brand, or you're only using like one of the brands that I'm using, our colors are going to be slightly different, that's okay. So don't stress too much if like our colors aren't one for one, because we don't have the exact same colors. And you see how much smoother the blend is when you go into the purple and blend it out. And then we're gonna go back in and try to make our light source more prominent in the center. And the light source doesn't necessarily have to be extremely smoothly blended in, because the clouds are going to help enhance the background. And you can even put some light sources up higher where it's darker, because we're going to utilize this pink in the clouds as well. And now I'm actually going to add some yellow to really enhance the light source. And with the yellow, you kind of have to be careful so it doesn't turn green, unless that's what you're going for. So I'm putting a little bit on the brush so I can put right here in the center. And do the same thing right here. And once we put the clouds in, this step will make more sense. For my dry brush, I'm going to use this one, and we're going to start making the clouds. So I'm going to take my darkest blue. And for this, you don't have to be extremely light, but you can wipe off the excess. Kind of start going in, and you don't have to make it too uniformed because they're clouds. And this is also why I said to use a brush that you don't really care about, because you have to press kind of hard for the paint because it's dry. And it's okay if it's still a little wet on the paper. We're gonna put some at the bottom corner. I put a little bit too much here, but we're just gonna smooth it out. And like I said, this doesn't have to be perfect because they're clouds, so make sure that it doesn't look too uniformed and that it looks very fluid. And then we have up here, so we're just gonna go in, and we don't want to cover up this light source too much because basically it's supposed to be shining through the clouds to give our clouds that highlight. And for some spots, I'm just reinforcing the darker blue so it has more depth to make a lighter blue and go over what we've done. But this time you want to make sure that you dab off the extra, like I'm doing here, and just kind of go from the top and go down. And you kind of want to make these motions a little random. If y'all can see the difference of how much better our clouds are looking now, just by adding a little bit lighter of a blue on top of it. And make sure you don't want to cover all the dark blue. You're just kind of going from the top and a little bit of the center, so it can have some depth to it. And of course you can like kind of make some other random here. Also for this step you can also utilize a smaller brush. But since we're still on the light blue part, I'm going to continue using this brush. Coming out to smooth out your lines, you can go in with a wet brush like this one and smooth it out a little bit more. But also you can go in with the wet brush to make highlights, which I will be doing in our next step. Too much, you can go back in and of course reinforce the darkest parts, kind of like how I'm doing now. We are going to go in with our wet brush and we're just going to wet it a little bit. And we want this to be a extremely light blue. And this is going to be for our detail. This is kind of how much paint I have, but actually I'm going to wipe some of this off because it's a bit too much. And we're going to go in and do some of this. You will still need your dry brush to smooth it out a little bit. Kind of like that. And then you just want to go into the middle, and this will help it give it more of like a 3D look. And keep in mind, the shapes that you're making are kind of sporadic and random, so you don't want it looking too uniformed. Like, look at that cloud. Go back into those light sources to make them pop out a little bit more. And then also, for your darkest parts, make sure you add some of this white. It'll really help your clouds pop out. Like, if you see how much of a difference that made just by adding that lightness to it. And for this wet brush, you don't have to press that hard compared to the dry brush. So now I want to take some of our areas where our light source is coming from and make them a little bit more brighter. I'm also going to use the dry brush. Because it's like this is our light source. And you guys don't have to do this step, but it's just a step I like to add to make my clouds look a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. And with that, we're gonna take this yellow and we're gonna make it super light. So now it has a highlight to it because of our light source. And you want to add this little light source, not to all of them, but to most of the areas where you have the lightest white at, or light blue that we use. And it just adds so much more to your sky when you add other elements and colors to it. Just make sure that this brush is wet so you don't have a hard time blending it with your dry brush. Just wanna... And if you guys can tell how much life it's bringing to this painting now that we've added these elements of highlight. So now we're at the end of the video, and here is our clouds and the sky. And all that stuff right there is from like the type of paper it is, but here it is. I hope you guys like this video, and make sure you leave a comment of the next tutorial you want to see from me. Bye!